Can you only imagine an authority figure stopping the broadcast of a WWE title match in the main event of Monday Night Raw because he doesn't feel respected? Or turn off the lights in the arena to punish the fans? Or even cut off the microphone of one of the most popular superstars in the middle of his promo and send him the Samoan Bulldozer Umaga for a match? All of this really happened, and the one who did it was the man who was, at the same time, the general manager of Raw and the king of the ring in the spring of 2008, William Regal. In this video, we're going to take a look back at the period when he was in charge of the Red Show, and more specifically when he was a completely crazy dictator, and we're going to see everything that made it amazing. You are in the wrestling paradise. Why William Regal was one of the best general managers in WWE history? Here we go! Before I tell you why William Regal was great as general manager, let me quickly introduce you to the character. It seems essential to me to appreciate even more all his evolution in the process. You should know that basically around 2007-2008, Regal already had a hell of a career in pro wrestling. He was almost in his 40s, he almost had a 25-year career. He had wrestled in World Championship Wrestling as well in WWE, having had the roles of a seasoned English brawler, a commissioner, already an authority figure by the way, and even public crier in King Booker's royal court. We can remember, for example, his comedic duo with Tajiri when he was the commissioner in 2001, which was really hilarious, and in which Regal proved that he was capable of being very serious, but also of being a clown in funny scenes. Which is not so surprising, because when he was a kid, he either wanted to be a wrestler, an actor, or a clown. It should also be noted that all of these years, on a more serious note, he has often struggled with drug addiction problems, which will lead to him being fired from Vince McMahon's company in April 1999. Obviously, we can say that he was already experienced in the summer of 2007. In your opinion, looking at his career up to that moment, what role suited him the best? Come say it in the comments, but personally, I would have said that he is excellent as an authority figure, that it really fits him. Who can sit at my table and tell me William Regal doesn't have what it takes for this kind of role? Because honestly, I think he's perfect for it. He has this very pompous, British-style gentleman side, and there's a good chance this is also what Vince McMahon thought, who was apparently not a fan of the Brits' way of wrestling, but who liked his personality. That's the reason why, in the summer of 2007, you'll never believe it, he became the general manager of Monday Night Raw, WWE's flagship show, after surprisingly winning a battle royal to get the job. Do you realize that suddenly, while he was used to a secondary role at that time, since he was in a tag team with his compatriot Dave Taylor, he became a key character in the most important show of the Federation? Anyway, now you know how he arrived in this position, and you will see that Regal will really make a big impact during the first months of 2008. So make sure to stay until the end of our video, because the best is yet to come. Hang in there. First, a thing that I find great in his entire period as general manager is that even if, at first, he was rather in a comedic and entertaining register, he still did it very well. For example, in the show where he won the Battle Royal, his first act as a GM was to set up a segment called The Dating Game, with a real identity where the beautiful Maria had to choose which one of the contestants would have a date with her. At that moment, let me tell you this. What a creativity, what an originality, and what an absurdity to do that for his first evening in this role. It is also impossible not to talk about the backstage segment there was at SummerSlam in 2007, where, after hesitating a little, Regal, with JTJ's cap on his head, will start dancing with Crime Time and Teddy Long around Vince McMahon, in a visual that still makes me laugh to this day. Look at those facial expressions and William Regal's face. What an actor! A detail that I also found funny is that he redecorated his general manager's office with pictures of singers George Michael and Elton John, among others. And of course, I'm also thinking about the fact that he never called the Samoan Bulldozer Umaga, but Umanga, which he did so that fans would remember the monster, and also because it reminded of the word humongous. A smart move by Regal. But it's really in April 2008 that he went to the next level. Are you ready for this? First, he's going to win the King of the Ring tournament in a super dominant fashion by destroying Hornswoggle, Finlay and CM Punk in just a few minutes with his Regal stretch submission. Then he's going to have his coronation, which I thought was visually magnificent, where he doesn't feel respected, either by the fans or by his colleagues, since Mr. Kennedy will interrupt him. And then something unbelievable happens. To avenge this disrespect and to punish the fans who do not appreciate him enough in his eyes, he will force the producer of the show to stop the broadcast of Raw during the main event between Triple H and Randy Orton for the WWE title. Do you realize the madness of this act? You're enjoying a title match that you've been looking forward to all evening, and boom, the general manager ruins it before the end without you being able to know the outcome of the match just to punish you. Isn't it mind-blowing? And that's exactly why I love William Regal as a GM. From the moment he became this Mad King who was at the same time King of the Ring and general manager, he was completely obsessed by the idea of being respected by everyone. And check out everything he did in this crazy period. Prepare to be shocked. Every time he was upset at the fans in his own promos, he would turn off all the lights of the arena for long seconds. Can you imagine how WWE was taking a risk by doing this? Because the viewers, by seeing a black screen for a certain amount of time, could easily be tempted to change the channel. He's going to force Triple H and Mr. Kennedy to have a match against the entire ECW roster to punish them for their lack of respect for him, which I find so great as a heelish act. You're going to think I'm being a salty Johnny, but it annoys me a lot that we've had less and less tyrannical authority figures over time who abuse their power to ruin the lives of their enemies. It's true that you could tell me, yeah, but Johnny, it has already been done, it's not new. And I would answer you, you are correct, but geez, it was great. I like it when you have a man or a woman of power in charge of the show. Heel or face, it doesn't matter, but it's an essential ingredient of the identity of the show in my eyes. As a landmark that you see on every show, to cut promos or to be in backstage segments, and of course, to be a credible representation of Raw in the case of a clash with SmackDown. I got the impression that WWE has attached less and less importance to the figure of general manager over time. Even if I would be happy to be proved wrong, of course. William Regal also turned off the lights before the end of a match between CM Punk and Randy Orton, thus depriving the fans of the finish once again. He cut off the sound of Jeff Hardy's microphone while he was in the middle of a touching promo for his return from suspension and sent Umaga to punish him for his sins. He's going to replace good old Jim Ross on commentary by Mike Adamle, who isn't respected enough too, according to him. He will ask security to get 2 randomly chosen fans out of the arena. He's going to ask announcer Lillian Garcia to sing God Save the Queen, the anthem of the United Kingdom. And all of this happened in just 3 weeks. We can really say that William Regal had gone crazy at that time. And personally, I am a fan of it. His mean and tyrannical acts were very original. He managed to make himself hated by the fans, which should be the goal of any good heel. As he said, he had become the most powerful entity in WWE in a few days. And for the record, there were even talks of him having a very big push at that time, and that he would even have a title match, which unfortunately won't happen because he will be suspended at the moment he was at his best. And according to me, he had become the top heel of Raw in the spring of 2008. And he would have deserved that title match, I think. To me, with all his actions and his absolute credibility at that time, he had become the most outstanding general manager in the history of Raw. Honestly, between us, which GM can sit at his table and say to him, William, I was more memorable than you. Eric Bischoff, for example, he was great, but was he the dictator of Raw and almost its central figure? No. It's the same for others who may have been cool, like Stone Cold Steve Austin or Kurt Angle, but overall, they weren't all over the place as Regal was in his golden age. Finally, we can regret that it was stopped abruptly because of his suspension and that it didn't last longer, but without that, he really seemed ready to make history. Of course, if you disagree with me, feel free to discuss it in the comments. On a personal note, if I also love this Regal era as the GM, it's because, as a superstar, he had it all. He had a classy, powerful presentation, and really perfect for a tyrannical general manager. I'm thinking about my favorite theme song of his, Regality, which he unfortunately didn't use all the time in his best period. But that was an intimidating song. It was so dominant, and when I heard it, I immediately took Regal seriously. And of course, the more classical and symphonic music that he had, Fanfare for a King, at the moment when he had become king, added an even more pompous and serious side, which in the end suited this character who wanted to become some kind of a monarch of Raw. Do you also love this theme song? To me, this music was awesome. In terms of looks, whether it was the elegant suits he put on when he was doing promos, for example, or his outfit when he was wrestling, namely a beautiful black and gold coat, black trunk, knee pads and boots, he really exuded class and believability, especially since he had a physical presence that made people believe in him. And to be honest with you, that was even more true when he had matches. When he won the King of the Ring in particular, I was impressed by his facial expressions, the rage and the intensity that we felt on his face, which went hand in hand with a very rough and brutal in-ring style. And it must also be said that he had a very strong identity anyway, with his British accent, his haircut and his language, which made him very gentlemanly. In my eyes, he was absolutely relevant when he was next to Triple H, for example. I would have imagined him without any problem to be legit in a ring in front of all the WWE main eventers in 2008. And it's too bad that everything stopped too soon because of a story of not respecting the wellness policy of the company, which, according to Regal, was totally unintentional and especially due to a general context where the Federation, because of the tragic Chris Benoit case, was more vigilant than ever in the whole field of steroids. It will remain a big regret in my humble opinion, because I would have imagined very well Regal being heavyweight champion on Raw instead of CM Punk throughout the summer of 2008, or having a real intense rivalry with Triple H just before the latter was drafted to SmackDown at the end of June. Would you have found it interesting too? Quite frankly, I think it could have been really great. But in the end, and you might be surprised, it was perhaps a blessing in disguise that all of this didn't go any further. Because the Brit said that to play this tyrant character, which is quite dark, that's for sure, he was studying some dictators in the history of mankind, and was fully invested in this job, paying less and less attention to his wife and his 3 children. He realized that this push as a GM and king would have caused him to lose his family. And we must be very clear about that. We would never have wanted him to be a dark and almighty character on Raw for months if it meant to distance himself from his loved ones. In the end, it won't stop Regal from having a great career by having wrestled in different eras, by forming a power couple with the beautiful Layla, and by evolving into a behind-the-scenes role to help talents to improve. Is that, in your opinion, a career worthy of the Hall of Fame? Obviously, you will have understood it. I am a big fan of William Regal's run as general manager, and more particularly of the period in the spring of 2008 when he reigned as a dictator in the Red Show, in a way that was unprecedented in WWE. His look, his presentation, his way of speaking and wrestling, all of this made him really unique. And I will conclude all this great praise of the Brit by saying, long live King Regal! Now you know why I think William Regal was one of the best general managers in WWE history, and why he made a big impact on Monday Night Raw in 2008. I invite you to come and give your opinion in the comments if you don't think he was so great, or if you loved him too. If there are other general managers, in your opinion, who have been more memorable than him. Anyway, the whole idea of our video is to talk about it together, to share our opinions, respectfully of course, because we are all passionate about wrestling. Let's never forget that we form a great and beautiful community. We can say that this topic raises a lot of questions. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and I invite you to stay in the paradise of wrestling to look at some other ones. See you right away.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so. What?